Time to get your fix. Come on down, get your horrible gaming review. 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 Wow.
Hello, my name is Zach Rye with Old Man Gaming, and welcome to another horrible game review. So a couple of disclaimers before we get into the bulk of this. Number one, the word horrible in the title of this video does not necessarily refer to the content or DLC that I am reviewing, but the actual review itself. I do snap judgment reviews here, so I only get about 5 to 10 hours with the game, although I can assure you I got more with this one. I'm just trying to give you an idea if you're going to have fun right away with this game or if you're not. And then finally, I also do not give scored reviews for video games. I don't believe in them. I believe that video games are one of the most subjective forms of art, and therefore you will get an overview of what the game is, a list of the pros and the cons of the game, in my opinion, as all reviews are, and then I will tell you whether I will be sticking with it outside the purposes of this review. That all said, what am I reviewing today? Well, I finally, maybe a year and a half too late, got to play Control. That's right, Remedy's newest game, latest game, obviously. It's quite old, but it finally went into Games Pass for PC. I think it's coming for console at some point, but for right now, it's Games Pass for PC. What is Control? Control is incredibly hard to describe or define. My best way of describing it would be if Alan Wake and Max Payne had some sort of weird love child. This would in fact be what came out. You play a woman named Jessie Faden who walks into an incredibly mysterious Federal Bureau of Control, a relatively unknown and confidential end of the American government that is all about stopping paranormal activities, protecting paranormal activities, collecting data on paranormal activities, that sort of thing. She walks into their incredibly mysterious headquarters, which is also the oldest house, a paranatural place all by itself that is constantly shifting and changing, and in a lot of ways kind of like the Doctor's TARDIS, way bigger on the inside than the outside. She has come here to find her brother, missing brother since childhood, and unravel the mystery of what happened to them in a kind of weird occurrence when they were children. But right away, she becomes somehow the impromptu director of the Federal Bureau of Control, while the Federal Bureau of Control is under siege by this strange kind of possession sort of entity known as the Hiss. What you then do is you collect a gun that kind of talks to you and kind of doesn't, but this gun shapeshifts into whatever type of gun that you need, depending on, you collecting different resources to actually upgrade it and get the forms. In other words, it starts as a revolver. You can then shapeshift it into like a shotgun type use, a sniper rifle type use, so on and so forth. What's interesting about this is it doesn't have a clip or any sort of loading mechanism. It fires a certain number of rounds, and then there's a cooldown before it can start firing again. Along the way, Jessie Faden also runs into these strange objects of power. I don't want to get into how this works to give her powers. In fact, I'm not even quite sure I understand how it works to give her powers, but she collects powers from them, superpowers. The most notable being telekinesis, where she can pick up pieces of the landscape around her and hurl them at her opponents. She also gets levitation powers, some flashy dodge abilities, and other such abilities along the way. What's really interesting about the telekinesis part, which we're going to get into in the pros, is that nearly the entire landscape that you move through is in some way, shape, or form destructible, which is very interesting for the telekinesis. Like if you see a chair, you can pick it up. If you see a fire extinguisher, you can pick it up. And if there isn't something to pick up, she will literally just rip chunks of the walls and floors up, which is very, very cool. That power never seems to be useless. Another aspect to this that I was a little bit surprised by are there is some build element light in this. Basically, what you will get is you get to buy skill points in your abilities as you go along, which allows you some freedom of build. But even more so, as you upgrade your weapons, you also collect personal mods and weapon mods that allow you to boost specific aspects of your repertoire. Now, without getting into serious spoiler territory, I'm going to have to stop talking about the story now. I mean, everything I've said happens to you probably in the first 15 minutes. So there's nothing there that's really going to break something for you. But after that point, it gets into the mystery, and I don't want to ruin anything for anybody heading into this game for the first time. I do want to say that this game's story is never what you expect it to be. It is incredibly mind-altering, and just it's a strange mystery. A strange mystery, no matter how you look at it. This next part, I'm going to say to you, I don't know if it's a pro or a con, but it is something that I experienced with this game. The way they write this game and the way they write the mystery, the compelling mystery to it. It is addictive, in a point where I'm not even sure that I really want to play this game through or wanted to play this game through, but just playing that and getting involved in the story, it is written in such a way that it drags you into it. I spend time thinking about it when I'm not playing it. I honestly had some weird dreams about it, stuff like that. It really infects your brain. You have to get to the core of this game, whether you want to or not. Playing it once, I think, might be impossible. Completely impossible. All right, so let's head into pros and cons. First of all, pro, gunfighting is still great in this game. It's receptive, it's reactive, and the powers amazingly flow with the gunfighting. While the recharge can be a little bit annoying at times, it's still nice to not have to worry about picking up ammo or not be stuck in some sort of boss fight where ammo doesn't drop too often. You just have to take cover, and you'll get your ammo back. My next pro has to be the powers in this game. The way they use the powers in this game, the telekinesis, the other stuff you get, it flows really well. I think other superhero games should take note, because one of the nice things about the powers in this is I never ever got caught with some weird mechanic for the power and got killed because I had to make some clumsy button combination dance or anything. They're just very receptive. They're always at your fingertips, and it's never too much to remember. My next pro is a surprising pro, and that's the build system of this game. First of all, anybody looking for a complex build system like Borderlands or even Godfall, something like that, this isn't the one for you. Don't get me wrong. It's got very light build mechanics, but they are still more in-depth than I was expecting in this. And one of the things I love about this game that some of those other ones don't even do properly is every build seems useful in every situation. Case in point, I love to make swarm builds. There's one power you can acquire called Seize. Basically what it means is you hit X on once your enemies are at a lower health point, you can hit X and you can basically possess them if you can keep the lock on for long enough, and then they'll start to fight for you for a certain period of time before they kind of pop and explode. You can actually build out this tree, increasing the duration of your Cs through the powers, as well as increasing the amount of people and the size of people that you can actually possess. Usually powers like that are fun in games, but they tend to not be great in the end game because you're usually fighting big bosses that don't necessarily have weak enemies that you're able to possess. And even if you do, those enemies just get torn up so fast that it kind of makes a pretty hard end game for you. However, that is not true with this one. I decided to go with the Cs, and I was very happy to know that I was completely useful all the way through the game. I built out my Cs so I could seize 3 characters, and through the use of the personal mods that you could acquire, you can actually double up on them. So I had a plus 120% seize time. So I would get them down to a health, and they would seize almost immediately, reducing any time, and those guys would take enough damage so that they would at least distract any bad guy for some period of time, allowing me to get some shots in. And it was just nice to be rewarded for that build choice. And I don't really see any way that you could build your character that it wouldn't like give you like be useful in the end game if you did it right. And that was a pleasant surprise for me. The next one's tricky because it is one where it's kind of a catch-22. It is a pro and a con. So on the pro side, there are basically, the way this story is told, it is such a mystery right off the bat. You don't know really what's going on at all. So in a lot of games where stuff like that happens, it's very easy to go, I don't care, I'm out early. But with this one, nearly every room has some collectible or some piece of the mystery that spurs you on. It gives you another little chunk to head into the next room and uncover the next document collectible. Usually I'm not a fan of these kind of collectibles, like especially in treasure hunting games like Tomb Raider or Uncharted. I feel that they're just like big blobby writing texts that don't really matter. They don't help the story in any way, shape, or form. I do enjoy stuff like this in stuff like Godfall or Mass Effect, where you're collecting chunks of the world building, and that's nice. But for the most part in these adventure games, it usually doesn't have it. This, however, is just every chunk of these collectibles is another little piece of the puzzle to be added to the whole. And it's another reason that this game is so compelling, that just kind of drags you into the mystery further and further and further, because every room you go into, you get another little taste. So you got to go into that next room. Maybe you'll get just the next part that you're looking for. And it's a slippery slope. However, that does bring me to the next one. And we might as well go into cons. So con number one is there are frickin' collectibles in every frickin' room of this game, just like everyone. And I got to say, 75, maybe even 85% of them are written, which means you're doing a ton of writing. In addition to that, for whatever reason, I think just for like the air of like a government building or whatever, they redact random parts of these. So not only are they slivers of the story as a whole, but there's slivers missing from the slivers. And man, I can't tell you how irritating it gets sometimes to go into a room, read a piece of paper, go into another room, read a piece of paper. With another game like Tomb Raider or Uncharted, you could just skip these because they're just flavor text about some Mayan civilization or something like that. But with this, the mystery is so compelling, you have to read these things. You absolutely have to read these things. Like, you choose to read these things, but at the same time, you're almost irritated that you choose to read them. So, in a way, the collectibles is really good pro because it keeps your interest driven in the story, but at the same time, sometimes really slows down the gameplay. My next con is, and this is a little bit of a pet peeve, I don't know if anybody else out there would be as irritated as I was by it, but it was a real killer for me. So the way the hiss work is they possess people, and then those people attack you, yada, yada, yada. However, they don't possess everybody to attack you. They only possess the people with combat skills to attack you. They still possess other people, but what they do is they just kind of float in midair with a dead-eyed stare, and they just repeat this like random gobbledygook chants over and over and over again. It is obnoxious to a level I cannot begin to describe. Every room you go in, there is at least a couple of these people just floating around, chanting stuff over and over, and like, you wanted this, you needed this, this. It is mind-bogglingly annoying. It was creepy the first time, but by the time you get like 3 or 4 hours into this game, and it's just been being chanted at you the entire game, it is just annoying. Like, stop. I don't need to hear it all the time. You can shoot the people, which is kind of humane because they can't be saved. They established that early on. But you can shoot them a bunch of times till they die, but it takes like 4 or 5 shots to kill them, and there's always like 4 or 5 of them in the room, so it's it just makes more sense to ignore them, and that's irritating. Like, it's just so irritating to be constantly assailed by these, like, mind-numbing chants in every room. It was seriously irritating to me. Like, seriously irritating. Easily the most annoying part of this game. All right, so whether or not I'm going to stick with it. Well, I have a confession. I basically would have beaten this already if it hadn't literally crashed on the last level the night before I recorded this audio. And I've only been playing it for like 4 days. Like, I really threw myself into this one. It's weird because I don't know that I even like it. There's a lot of things about it that just, this isn't the type of game that I would usually go for, but it is so well written. And you gotta give props to Sam Lake. The dude has been in the industry for over 20 years. He wrote Max Payne 2. He wrote Alan Wake. He wrote Quantum Break, which was flawed, but it wasn't a flawed experience for the writing. It was a flawed experience because of the way they decided to do it. And then he wrote this, and his writing is just, it's balls to the wall, crazy and insane. And that's something you get out of this game. The experience of this game is like nothing else. It is a genre unto itself, and for that, you got to give it some praise. You got to give it some love. I mean, it's so wild and crazy. Whether you like or hate this game, you will be able to play this game and say, there is no game like this. I mean, yes, it plays the way other games do, but I mean, as far as the writing is concerned, there's just no other game like this out there. For that, I am definitely going to finish it. I don't know if I'll do every side quest out there, but I'm in the last level anyway. Other than the crash, I just got to go back in and replay it. And I got to know. It is one of those games kind of like the first season of Twin Peaks. You just have to know. You have to know. And that's what draws you in. So, all right. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. I do have one other confession. I'm sorry if my voice sounded a little bit weird. I had a tongue biting incident, and my tongue is all swollen, so I apologize for that. You guys can always reach us on Facebook at OldManGamingDH, on Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord. The link is in the description below. You can influence us in all of our shows from there. And as usual, you guys keep watching and listening. We'll keep making them. We'll see you guys next time.